lovely. Welcome to the Fallon Frequency Podcast, where I am going to deep dive into mindset work, into energetics, into universal laws. I'm going to share my stories and how I embodied these laws. And most importantly, I'm going to share my energy and my frequency with you, because that's what it's all about. It's all about raising our vibration, up-leveling to be our most authentic, most powerful selves. So without further ado, let's go ahead and deep dive into episode 1, which is all about reinventing yourself. It's all about the art of turning the page. I'm going to share with you my story and how I have turned the page many times. I have lived many chapters in my short time here, and how I love it. I embrace it. I am a master of living in the unknown, and I didn't even realize it till I really took the time to reflect back on my own story. So let's go ahead and deep dive and start with, some core principles I want to talk about here. Why reinvention is necessary. Why is it really necessary for us to get past our comfort zone and reinvent ourselves? I think we're really collectively starting to wake up that we can reinvent ourselves, we can change our identity, we can become new versions of ourselves, we can grow as many times as we want to. It's really up to us, and really recognizing that each chapter that we're deep diving into, there's lessons there. Our life is expanding, our awareness is expanding, and it's really shaping the person that we're becoming and the person that we are. I don't look as change as a bad thing. I look as it as a necessary, as a necessary thing. And without it, what are you doing? If you're not growing, you're dying. Growth is essential, and it's a part of this awesome human experience we're having, versus being afraid of it and not embracing the unknown. Staying stagnant, way riskier in my mind than embracing that unknown. And like I said, it's something that I've done many times. It's on the other side. You can make up all of these ideas in your head, but you don't actually know until you make that change, till you have that growth, till you learn that lesson. So really having the courage to change and the just do it mentality is kind of how I've done it. I used to read a lot of Alan Watts. Living in Faith versus Fear was one that I've gone with for a little. If you're new to my world, you'll hear me say this a lot. If you're not new, you would know that I've lived by that for a long time. And what that really means is just having this innate trust and knowing that without knowing what's on the other side, it's all going to be good. It's all going to work out. I'm going to learn a lesson. I'm going to end up where I should. And if I'm not, it's okay to change again. It's okay to pivot. So, not being, obviously we can't predict our future, so why try? Another thing he used to say that kind of kills the whole mystery of life. If we knew everything and knew every single step and every lesson we were going to learn along the way, what's the fun in that? Getting back on topic and my personal stories when it comes to reinvention, I'm just going to really give you a huge deep dive into how many times I've reinvented myself and what that looked like and how that led, and you'll kind of start to connect the dots that it's all actually great, and what's led me here to you talking on a podcast today, when if you would have asked me, maybe 6 months ago, certainly not at all where I thought I would be, but trusting the unknown and jumping into it full-heartedly. So let's talk about my own personal journey. I've turned the page many times, and each one was better than I expected, let's say. So I'm going to start with my story of going into the super yacht industry. If any of you aren't familiar with what that industry is, it's pretty unique. It's basically working for the top 1% of the world's wealth on their private yachts. And depending on what yacht you're on, you get to travel the world. Travel has always been a really big passion of mine, so it's kind of funny that, obviously I would end up on a yacht. But the way it happened was I actually, my first kind of boyfriend, I was pretty young and naive at the time, I started to date a Kiwi. Kiwi meaning this guy was from New Zealand when I was still in college. And this Kiwi guy was in this world, this yachting world that I'd never heard of. He was traveling the world, he was visiting me in all these different places. He came to see me when I was living in Panama. And it was like, what is this? What is this world? What's this awesomeness? Sending me pictures from tropical islands, going surfing everywhere. And I was like, wow, what is this? And the funny thing is, as I started to learn more about this industry, is that it actually wasn't big for Americans. I don't know what it is now. I don't know the regulations, but Americans actually, because we're known for suing, we cost more money to be insured to be a crew member on a yacht. Anyways, it ended up working out and I ended up being on the yacht. Things with the Kiwi did not work out in the end, which is a story for another day. We won't get into that. And when things didn't work out with us, what I did is I waited a whole year, made sure that this nudge, this itch, this thing that I was meant to do was really, something coming from me and not from this guy. And I ended up jumping on a yacht. I think I quit my job and within a week was hired, went over to, I remember taking the train. I was so nervous, going up to Savannah, Georgia. I was living in Florida at the time. That's where my family's from, Jupiter, Florida. Any Floridians out there? And I went up to Savannah, Georgia, really awesome place. And I got on this yacht. Didn't know anybody. I was so shy, believe it or not. And we ended up getting the boat ready and we went and traveled Europe. Now that yacht semester ended, but what was meant to be a year of living in this crazy hectic world of traveling and just being on the go and all these different things turned out to be like nearly a decade. I think I left after the end of my 7th year out of Barcelona. And what can I say about that chapter? That willingness to go into the unknown. I had no idea what was on the other side, but that willingness to really just be like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And this is, we'll see it through, was one of the most magical chapters of my life for so many different reasons. The friends that I, am still very, very dear to my heart that I met on those yachts, the people I learned from. I was surrounded in this room of billionaires. Like, that's pretty phenomenal at such a young age to learn all these things, to really start to figure out what I did like, what I didn't like, who I was at my core. We don't talk about it a lot, but your 20s, you're learning a lot about yourself. You're really vulnerable. You're really, unless you've got a good head on your shoulders, your environment, you absorb it. And I'm so grateful that I did. I never really got caught up in the showiness of it. I never got caught up in the ego aspect. I always was, pretty tuned into myself the whole time. What I can say though, it was a crazy world. And sometimes when we're in these different chapters, it's really hard for us to see anything outside of those things. So things started happening, I traveled the world. I am so grateful for that experience. If I could name half the countries I've been to, one of my favorite, Galapagos. Like, how cool is it to go on Christmas to go surfing with sea lions or seals? I forget which ones are there. And these awesome tortoises that are like 150 years old. I went to Patagonia. I jumped in this iceberg water. I swam with super pods of dolphins. I could literally talk about all my awesome experiences in yachting, for this whole podcast, but I won't do that because we're talking about the art of reinventing, the art of pivoting, and how we can turn the page and everything's still going to be okay, and how it's necessary for our growth. I started at the end of my career of yachting. I just felt like I had ticked the box. Not that I didn't want to travel anymore, but the environment I was in, I was like, this is not serving me. I'm like doing my job with my eyes closed. I don't feel like there's growth for me here, and it just felt wrong. It felt like it was time to move without even knowing what it was, right? So I'm communicating with the universe and I'm like, you know what? I don't think this is my place anymore. Where am I going to go? I don't know, but I'll figure it out. So being you might have heard on the intro, I've got a love for surfing. I always have. I used to go anytime I could get time off, which was like never on yachts. But one of my last holiday trips before I left the yachting industry was by myself to the Mentawais, which, if you're not familiar, I believe it's West Sumatra in Indonesia. Crazy big waves. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. But I just wanted to go be alone on an island, surf, get clear on my head, figure out what I'm doing. I knew I didn't want to be in yachting anymore, but I didn't know my next steps. So I did. I went. Universe would have it. I spent like a few weeks by myself, and then I ended up on this other island in a house with 12 Aussie guys. There was this crazy wind rainstorm, and it cut off all the internet for weeks. Which I didn't even know is what I needed. I needed to really get clear. And I honestly was probably the healthiest, I can still say that now, healthiest mind, body, soul presence, being like on purpose. I think it's a really healthy habit. I won't go on this tangent, but to not be on our phones all the time. But it really allowed me to figure out what I did want, what I didn't want. Like I said, yachting wasn't serving me anymore. So during that trip, I claimed that I was going to change. I was going to resign, and guess what? My next move was? Moving to Australia. I had never lived in Australia. I had obviously met a lot of Aussies, Kiwis in the yachting industry, but I'd never been there and lived there. I knew friends from there, so I think I just felt like, it was my place. And from a young age, I also had that nudge that Australia would be in my life at some point. I just didn't know in which way. So I listened, like I do, to these nudges, to these feelings, and I decided, I'm going to resign. I'm going to move to Australia. So I did exactly that. I followed out the last season, the med season, which is our busy season in yachting. And the end of 2019, I decided, hey, I'm moving to Australia. I don't know where I'm going to live. I don't know how long I'm going to be there. I don't know all the logistics or the how or whatever, but I know I'm going. And what I did is I said, hey, I'll give myself a year. I'll figure it out. Let's see what happens. So, funny enough, I booked my flight, my one-way ticket, did not even have my Airbnb. I literally booked my Airbnb on my way over there because I had this faith, I had this trust that I was going to go to Australia. So I get to Australia, and this is during, obviously, the beginning of 2020, so things hadn't really gotten super hectic yet, but basically, I had nowhere to live, so I stayed in an Airbnb for a couple nights, and then I decided I wanted to start my travels in the most healthy way. I had gotten really interested in the health and wellness world and detoxing and rebalancing the nervous system when I was in yachting, because yachting is such a high-strung industry. It's very go, go, go. You are on all the time, so anytime I really did have time off, I would gift myself, a little reboot so I could come back to the yacht and function again. So I'd go to health industry like Thailand or Indo or whatever, and go surfing, obviously. But yeah, so I get over there and I'm like, oh, there's this wellness week, in Byron Bay. If you're not familiar with Australia, Byron Bay is pretty magical. And basically, I was like, when I'm there, I'll figure out, I'll live there for the week. I'll be a guest at this retreat. I'll recalibrate. I'll get my health in good order, and I'll figure out where I'm going to live. So I did. I stayed there for the week. Obviously, I was meant to be there. It was really awesome. A lot of downloads, a lot of embodying new things. And I find my, more permanent residence when I was staying in that space. So from there, I won't go too in depth into this story, but basically, COVID happened. Our first lockdown happened. Luckily, I had saved money from yachting, and I was just embracing the surfing. I couldn't work. I was over in this new country. None of my friends were there that I'd met in yachting, obviously, because of restrictions and things like that. So I just had to do it alone, and I just embraced it. I would say that Australia really welcomed me in so many magical ways. Love it over there. I really, really do. It holds a very special place in my heart. But what happened when things did open up for jobs and work, I didn't even go looking. I kind of started to poke around different ideas, but basically, the owner of the health retreat that I stayed at as a guest contacted me because we had spoken during the week. We had made friends. We hadn't spoken during this whole lockdown period, but she contacted me and saying, hey, we are reopening our doors. I'm not even sure if you're in the area still, but if you are, do you want to come help us out? Do you want to come, drive guests around? Do you want to help with some admin? Do you want to blah, blah, blah? Obviously, yeah, of course, let's do it. So that ended up being one of my jobs the entire time I stayed in Australia. I helped facilitate health retreats. It was kind of a smaller version of what we did on the yachts. We used to entertain guests, we used to organize things, and this was that. This was, getting things ready before guests arrived, helping, and then on that journey, I just deep dived into wellness more so. Specifically for me, I really love traditional Chinese medicine, but the part of this story is that I had to reinvent myself, right? I knew myself as a yachty. I was yachty, is what they call it, somebody that's working on yachts. And yachting is a different lifestyle. You're kind of it's like you're just doing everything in the extreme because you're in this extreme environment. Even like, for example, like my own health. Like I could literally have a bottle of red wine in a night and not feel like I was fine the next day, but it's like so not good for your health, but then I'm in this wellness world where I'm like, ooh, it's all about meditating and slowing down, which was a huge lesson. I had to learn how to slow down. I'm sure on this podcast I'm speaking ridiculously quickly because it's something I'm still actively trying to learn. But the art of reinventing yourself, and how do you do it? So I just threw myself into everything wellness. What I started studying was shiatsu, and my professor, he was actually an acupuncturist, so traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, huge part of my journey, and absolutely love it. It's still things I use today, but it really kind of pulled me. I think I was really up in the head when it came to yachting, and to get back into the wellness world, to get back in my body and to start play with energies and emotions and how all these different things affect our physical body is kind of, this beautiful thing that I absorbed when I was over in Australia. My 1 year became around 5, which is kind of crazy when I think about it now. But then that journey, so I'm in the wellness world, I'm facilitating retreats, and I'm loving life. But, universe would have it. It was time to grow. It was time to pivot. It was time to keep going, reinvent myself. So there's a few things that came into work here, and a few things that made me eventually leap yet again. And I don't know if I'd even say it's like reinventing yourself if I look at it. It's more like up-leveling, but taking all the lessons from each chapter and using them in each new chapter. So you're never really starting at zero. You're just... I guess you're adding to your own beautiful array of different lessons and life experiences you've had. But I end up meeting my guy over in, I might do a different episode on this because I did this in my program, actually, talking about the connection there and how everything is kind of working out in your favor, how you manifest him, but really talking about the connection. Like, we are 100% meant to meet. I meet my guy on the dance floor in Australia, and we're actually from the same hometown. We're from Jupiter, Florida, which is funny enough. I thought he was Aussie. He has the Aussie look. He's like surfer dude, kind of. He actually doesn't surf. He does foiling. But so meet him on the dance floor from the same hometown, Jupiter, Florida, and he doesn't live there. He's there just for a work thing. But anyways, we end up, connecting, and I end up thinking, I hadn't seen my family in a long time. They live on the other side of the world. I've been working in this health, and why? And is that good enough? Like, I actually want to be able to afford to go see my family. I want to go be able to afford to see my partner, not like once a year when he comes to visit. So it really got the tables turning, the juices moving onto what next for me. What's next for Fallon? What can I do that gives me this love of Australia, but also allows me to go see my family, also allows me to, be across the world. Maybe it's time to travel again. So I start putting these ideas out in the universe. I have no freaking idea what I want to do. Write down, what am I good at? What am I, what do I love? What are the big things? And the next thing that comes to me is this partnership with this personal development company. It's global. One of my biggest things that I wrote down is that it's got to be remote. I got to move with it. Like, I found the health retreats were amazing, but I was stuck in one place. Given you can do them in other countries, but in this particular situation. So what did I do? I pivoted yet again. I turned the page yet again. I said goodbye to the health retreat. I felt like I had learned what I needed to learn there. And it was a really supportive place for me to be during my whole time in Australia. So now I'm working for this partnership, with this partnership alongside it. And it's just pushing me in so many different directions, and so many past my comfort zone in a lot of ways, you could say, in a good way. It's all these concepts I knew and I learned a long time ago, but I wasn't embracing them. So it was really kind of putting me in the room with bigger thinkers, which I had been in the room with big thinkers, and then I went to a room with people that were just super happy in their, where they were, to really kind of push past and go back to the big thinking. again. So reinventing myself yet again. I take on this partnership, and, as it would happen, I end up going over to Europe, doing this conference, going to a conference that they offer. It's one of the things that they're known for. They're known for their e-learning programs and their big conferences. And I'm like looking around the room here. I'm not the youngest, but I'm definitely one of the youngest. And I'm like, what am I doing? Here I am yet again, pushing myself into the unknown. Definitely great conversations, lots of learning there. Beautiful friendships, really big awakenings that happened for me during my time with them. But again, the universe started nudging me a fourth time. I mean, it's nudged me many times, but these are the big chapters that I've got going on. And that was where I'm speaking to you now. Mentorship. I have conversations with people. I just really share my insights, what I've learned, my own downloads, my own relationship with the universal laws, and how they have impacted my life in such a profound, positive way that it was inevitable I was going to be speaking to you in some sort of space to share them. So yeah, I just wanted to give you a little background of kind of where I came from, my journey, and how living in the unknown is something I've mastered and something that I want to help others do, because I truly believe we all have the power. I truly believe that we can do whatever we want, and we can make a change today, this second, to pivot and to change. And so many people don't. So many people let fear be too loud, where instead I want to encourage you to listen to the faith, listen to what's nudging you, listen to the universe. Open up your mind, because there are infinite possibilities out there. And you can be whoever you want to be. You can change all the time, which I think is pretty awesome and pretty special, and what makes this life so freaking exciting. Because we can reinvent ourselves time and time again. I know that I'll be doing that, in the future. I know that I'll be evolving and changing, and I hope that I'm always evolving and changing. Because if not, there's no growth. If not, I'm dead. I need to keep moving. I need to keep going. So the energetics behind reinvention, what I really wanted to mention is your next level self. It already exists. It really is already there. You've probably seen it in your dreams. Maybe you've thought about it. You've written it down. It's really about aligning with it. I can definitely say that pretty profoundly for me speaking to you now, because I saw this happening in a dream. Like I started doing all this mindset work and knew, again, putting it out there to the universe, like, hey, it's time for me to up level. It's time for me to shift. It's time for me to grow again. And this is what it showed me. And I was like, well, shit, I've seen it now in my mind. What does Bob Proctor say? You've seen it in your mind. You can have it in your hand. Something along those lines. I'm probably botching that, but that's what I mean. I've seen it, so I'm doing it. So it already exists. And there's probably a reason why you were drawn 100%, not probably, 100%, there's a reason why you were drawn to this podcast, because you've seen it. You know you can up level. You know that there's a different reality for you than the one you're currently living in, or else you wouldn't be here and you wouldn't have listened to this entire story. If you weren't attracted to this energy, to this vibration, because you want to be that, and you want to be that all the time. And that's my specialty, and that's why I'm here, sharing this wisdom, sharing these experiences so that you can too use them. You can be inspired. You can go do the thing. Change it's not just about external shifts. It's embodying that new energy, from yachting, this hectic energy, to me becoming a wellness therapist, to me then, hey, I am now an entrepreneur. I am a mentor. I have to embody all of these things before I can teach them. But it's about, it's not your external environment. It's always going to be about your internal. This is where I talk about awareness a lot, really starting to tune in what is going on inside, not just the head, but tuning into our heart, to our body, to our emotions, to our energy. And growth is really going to happen when you trust yourself. Letting go of those old beliefs, those old identities, allowing these new versions to come out, allowing, we hold ourselves back all the time, me included, definitely have done it. But the difference here is that I've pushed past it. I've recognized when I'm holding myself back, and I push through it. So I wanted to share these, just so you know that change is okay. And it's not just okay, it's necessary. Reinvention is something not to be feared. Living in the unknown is not to be feared. It is like jumping in head first, like you are so freaking excited. Because that's the key to life. If you want a life full of color and adventure and expansion, you got to do things that are a little bit uncomfortable. You got to push past the fear, because what's on the other side is absolutely incredible. So if you've been feeling that inner nudge and you're ready to turn the page, I would like to say this is your sign. This is 100% your sign, and why you may have found me, and to go for it. So I will leave you guys with that. I don't want to overtalk. I could talk about this stuff, and I will. I'll be coming to you weekly with this podcast of the Fallon Frequency, because I feel like it's really valuable. I feel like sharing your energy and your frequency and your good positive vibes is super, super powerful, even if it just affects one person. So I hope that resonated with you. Please comment, please subscribe. If it's something that you want to listen more about, would love for you to jump in my DMs. If there's anything in particular you want me to talk about, I am currently this month of April doing a free Telegram chat where we kind of deep dive into everything. You'll have me 5 days a week. We're going to do some Q&As and things like that. So if you're not jump into my DMs, jump into my world. I've got some master classes for free up there. If you're looking for a mentor but you're not really sure, happy to have a chat with you about it. If you've got a few limiting beliefs that you want me to help you work on, please shoot them in my DMs. I really love connecting with people, and I really love inspiring others, and I feel like that's my calling, and that's why I'm here. So thank you again for tuning in. Thank you for coming to the Fallon Frequency. It is a pleasure having you. I am so excited to be on this journey with you all, and look forward to our next episode together. Bye.